Well, hello there. It is an overcast Saturday here in the Hammocks, Florida, and I'm just trying to get some writing done and get some inspirational messages out. I think it's important for us to share our thoughts with others, especially during this critical time that we're all facing. Some of us are facing some medical issues, or we have medical issues and really want to prevent us from coming into contact with any of the coronavirus. Others are experiencing economic difficulties, I know, because of the situation, and I just feel for those people. I venture out a couple of times a week, typically to go to the clinic to get my treatments, and I take an Uber. The Uber guys are, protecting themselves with masks, and I do too. And I get into conversations with them because they come into contact with all kinds of people, and I feel for them and the stories they tell and how their business has suffered. And people who own restaurants and people who own retail businesses that are not essential, and how this situation has really just cut into their livelihood and all the people that work for them as well. And so I have a lot of respect for people who try and figure out how to get things done. And so, figuring out how to get things done is something that we're all capable of doing, thinking about how we address particular situations and how we solve particular problems. But one thing that we cannot do or should not do is to, because of these situations and because we have problems that we all need to solve, is to not stray into areas that are going to cause us issues later on or right away. So, for example, making decisions that might cause you to get into trouble, to lose your integrity, to set bad examples for your children, for your family. It's very important that even despite the pressure that some of the current events are imposing upon us, that we do not justify bad decisions based on that pressure. And I know that's tough. I know that's difficult. I mean, think about people that are going hungry in a particular country or anywhere for that matter. And, we've probably all seen examples like this. And they make a choice, right? They don't have any money. The kids are hungry, and they go into a store and shoplift, and they justify it as saying, my kids are going hungry and I don't have any way to get any money, and so this is justified. And while I can certainly understand that point of view, don't necessarily agree with it, because there are opportunities in the community for you to receive help and aid. And I know that a lot of neighbors are willing to help other neighbors. I know that there are all kinds of groups, the Rotary, for example, being one group that is sharing canned goods and food and other things with people. I know I see Carlos Pinellas, the ex-mayor, getting involved and setting up food distribution. So there's plenty of opportunities like that. And I think it's up to us to figure out how to solve our problems, but still stay on the right ethical and path and do it with integrity. Because it's so easy to justify, right? It's so easy to create this scenario or these sets of scenarios where you have a bunch of gray areas and you wander into them because you rationalize or you justify that it's okay to do it based on the conditions. And so I know how tough it is, and I've been there myself. When we first came to this country, we had nothing really, and we got a lot of help. And sometimes it was difficult to get that help because you had to scrounge around for that help. But my parents always taught me, and I tried to live my life this way, except for a very dark period in my life where I didn't. They always taught me to live with integrity and to make good, sound decisions. And so, we haven't gotten into the subject of how you make decisions. and how you make ethical decisions, right? And my favorite theme here, and I keep beating this drum because this is something that cost me almost 4 years of my life and 10 years to really get back my reputation and my integrity and to have people trust me again. How you make decisions is important. And if you do not develop some methodology for making the decision, and it doesn't have to be, 10 pages worth of write-up and flowcharts that you go through in order to make decisions. But if you do not have a framework upon which to make decisions, the chances are you could make a bad decision and not even know it. Or the chances are you could wander into a gray area, you could justify or rationalize something, and then it ends up costing you. It ends up costing you either from an integrity perspective or lost relationships, bad example for your children, or even running afoul of the law. I mean, some decisions are that serious that you could end up with that in that kind of situation. So a very simple set of frameworks here. So the first thing is, have you ever just written down what you believe are the core values that you should live by and that your family should live by? And if you run a company, run a department, own a company, whatever, that the team that you work with should live by. So it's very important to do that because those core values, and I'm talking about things like, integrity is of utmost importance and we will never sacrifice it in making short-term decisions. For example, that might be one core value, integrity, and then, you write a sentence about it. Honesty, accountability. Accountability is important. When we make a mistake, we take responsibility for the mistake and we make it right. There's another core value, right? So, having 5 or 6 really important core values that you stand in and you make decisions from are important, because those core values then, given that you've framed them the right way and they're specific enough, will guide you and others that are around you as to how to make the right decisions. And it will allow you to take decisions and alternatives that might seem kind of murky, alternatives or potential outcomes that might be kind of murky and gray choices, and narrow those down and even try and eliminate them. So you only have a black and a white choice and you choose the white choice. And so that's important, right? Because then the way you're doing that is you're, first of all, using that core value, those sets of core values to make the decisions, eliminating the gray areas from the decision making, so it's pretty much black and white. And you're also considering outcomes. So if you're going to take a particular path, let's say that you've come up with 7 or 8 different paths on this problem you're trying to solve. You take the path all the way down in your mind, maybe even on paper, and you lay out the pros and cons. And when you do that, you're quickly able to, also bouncing them off of your core values, quickly able to say, well, that's not a path I want to go down. Saw that off, eliminate it. And you do that until you have just bright white paths. And you might make decisions based on some economic kind of thing or some kind of community based thing or some other criteria that provides benefit to you, your company, your family, to others, etc. So now, given that you've done this, you now have a pretty decent chance, high probability, that you're not going to get in trouble making unethical decisions. The next thing you want to do is also, because some decisions are tougher than others, and sometimes you want to get some input from others, is to create a network of people. And this is not something you can do overnight because it takes some time. And we can talk about this in a future talk. But create a network of people that you have vetted. To vet someone means you know you can trust them. You have looked into their background. You have talked to others. You have seen how they behave, how they walk the talk. And to create a small network of trusted advisors, I call this voices of value, that you can bounce things off of and that can give you good, solid advice, because they in turn are steeped into these core values and they have integrity. So that's another part of the framework. And then finally, Mistakes are going to be made, right? None of us are mistake proof. And so we're going to make some mistakes, irrespective of how much we try and stay away from them, because that's just human nature. When you do make a mistake, then you become accountable. Again, one of your core values, accountability, responsibility. Take responsibility for the mistake. Boy, we certainly lack accountability in this world today, especially in this country, right? People who just want to blame somebody else, want to blame the weather, want to blame traffic, want to blame whoever, right? Left wing, right wing, the farmers, the truckers, blame somebody else, not take responsibility yourself for a mistake you made. But it's important, as part of the ethical framework, when you make a mistake, to take responsibility for it and atone for it. Make it right. What do you need to do to make it right? So the framework is, you develop a set of core values, you use the core values to eliminate the gray areas in your decision making, you measure each outcome to make sure that you understand what the consequences of your decisions are. You engage a set of trusted advisors over time to be sounding boards and to give you advice and to help with really tough decisions. And then in those instances where you make a mistake, you take responsibility, you take accountability. And boy, you know what, when I started doing that, because I went through a dark period in my life where I just didn't have any integrity. There was no such thing as a core value for me. I was guided by greed and pride and arrogance and avarice, chasing the almighty dollar, chasing the power, being fulfilled by the power, but not really, because it was leaving, all that stuff was leaving an empty hole in my heart. And it wasn't until I got into trouble and I crashed and burned that I realized all the things that I had done that were just totally against having integrity, having accountability, having humility. That's the magical triad, right, for any human being, and certainly for a leader. Humility, accountability, and integrity. And until I learned that lesson, I could not be fulfilled by anything. Only when I learned those lessons and I started applying them did I start feeling fulfilled. Not necessarily happy. Look, life is not a bowl of cherries. We're going to face problems in our lives. You know, I'm dealing with stage 4 cancer, but I'm fulfilled because I've regained my integrity. I'm accountable when I make mistakes. I'm not always as humble as I should be, but I certainly try, because there's nothing more humbling than being sentenced to a federal prison sentence. And I don't go back into the past to beat myself up about that, because I have learned from my mistakes. What I go back to the past on is to learn from the past so that my behavior in the present allows me to have a fulfilling future. That's my wish for you. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at Enrique@fiallo.com, ENRIQUE @fiallo.com, FIALLO.com, or visit my website at www.fiallo.com. I speak on ethical behavior and leadership and how great leaders make decisions differently. And I'm in the process of finishing up a book about this as well. And be most happy to chat with you about it one-on-one, no strings attached. I am always open to thoughts and input and ideas, and it only will help make my book stronger and my talks that I give on this subject more relevant and more resonating with people. And so again, if you just want to chat, go ahead and reach out to me. I wish the best for you. I wish that you stay safe during these really weird times that we're living under. And peace and love to you.